The X factor. Like, who are we? Like me, I'm Generation X, and I see after us the whole bra burning hippie, peace loving generation coming before us. You guys are setting that up for us to do. Like, you've experienced war, you've had children suffer fighting and had to experience it, and you don't want this anymore. We can tell that. That's why you're here doing what you're doing. Me, I don't want to go overseas and put on a uniform. I want to fight a different fight. And the next generation, they don't like this at all. You can tell it's just peace, love with this next youthful generation. So then I started over analyzing in life. What is an X? What is X? Like, it's a target, it's a pinpoint in an equation, it's the variable, or it's the crossing point. Like, here's the line and we're crossing it. Well, this brings me to a point where we are at the X part of life right now. You guys before us, you experienced the original old traditional way, and I'm nothing bad. I mean, black and white televisions might have existed, radio may have existed, and slowly technology started to take over. For me, I started with technology. So I had an Atari to Coleco to the Nintendo 64. So I've got to experience a little bit of the old way of doing stuff, pen and paper, learning old, like writing stuff out. But this next generation here, they have no old values. I mean, from them, it's just technology, the new way, ADD, do a million things at once, multitask, so the focus is gone. So I think like we're in a very, very fragile time I don't think this time ever comes again in history of mankind, at the point where we go from old to new, and if we don't do anything about it right now, I don't think it'll ever happen. I mean, the power of now, of Generation X, and what we have to do as a unified group isn't more profound than it will ever be. Now, everybody's generation or time, say 100 years ago, it was very important, the power of now. But not as important as the power of now is today, I think. I think today is very important just for that reason, is because if we pass this next 10, 20 years without instilling some of the old original values, there's going to be no focus. Like, I can remember my dad telling me, you know what, I finished school, got home, I would work, relax at home, family time. But now, I mean, 40 hours a work week is not enough. And then you've got to take the kids to sports, you got to watch your game, you've got to get to how many kids you have, like life, 168 hours in a week, not even close to enough. It's because we want. The other day I posted a picture, and it was about a protest about the Dakota pipeline. And I saw this protest, and I'm like, wow, look at all these people gathering to make a difference and a cause. And so I reshared that picture. And within 5 minutes, one of my friends, she's a scholar, she looks at everything, and I figure stuff out, but she reads and looks and researches. She messaged me, texted me, and I didn't put it on Facebook. And she's like, hey Jazz, you might want to take that picture down. I'm like, why, what's up? And she's like, sends me the text, and she goes, that's actually a picture of Lollapalooza way back in the 60s. So somebody took a picture to make it look like a protest. So you really don't even know what you're reading or watching anymore.
This is going on all the
everywhere,
time
everywhere. Like our television is, we don't edit or put anything in the front. But okay, I like learning. So until I bought the coffee shop, I took a class at UFE pretty much every year. And one of the classes we took was foreign film studies. And you know the power of that lens? It's unreal. And I mean, the propaganda, original movies in Hollywood and everything that started came from government-funded agencies to tell you a story and a belief system. Fear this, agree with this, it tells you what to do. And you don't think, well, whatever. But when the teacher starts going through lesson 1, lesson 2, and builds your knowledge up, it is so manipulated. Like you said, it's not pure knowledge, it's manipulated knowledge for you to believe what they want you to believe. And I mean, they could be the producer, the director, the network, could be a politician, but whoever owns that channel, is guiding you to believe a certain thing. And we don't want to be like that. I mean, we want to share the story the way it is and have opinions come to us. Like, hey, Jazz, why did you share that? I'm like, well, it was an opinion that was brought forward. We felt that it was needed to be viewed. Now it's your job to come up with your own personal opinions of what we show on TV. And we're not picking right or wrong here. What gives me the right to say what is right or wrong? I have no right. My job is just to sit here and accept what you're giving me, hopefully go home, interpret it later, and accept it for your truth and possibly my future truth. Yeah, I'm a constant learner, and that's actually in our nature. A Sikh, you would say. When we would get home from school, my dad would ask me, "Aj ki sikhya?" Sikhya, what did you learn today? So the word itself is student. We're constantly learning. Now, whether you like it or not, at some point in life, you become teachers. Now, it's the truth. You can't hide from it. Like, sure, as children, we're constantly learning, but say we turn 10 or 11 and we have a younger brother, we're now their teacher. Without a choice, you're teaching. You get to 15, 20 years old, now you're still a student at school, but the grade 8s or the first year freshmen are learning from you. So you don't have a choice here. As much as you all are students of life, you're also teachers of this life. And you have to take responsibility in that as well. Like, constantly teaching. Have fun, be crazy, do some things that you are normal, but you have to live a little, but you're constantly teaching as well as you are learning. And that shocked me when I realized that. I'm like, wow, I am a teacher. It's what I do. Everybody's a teacher. So we have to constantly be sharing positive thoughts. Like, in Indian culture and Western culture, Indian culture, my dad or my grandfather will always be the head of the family. We'll live in one big house together. Now, we get made fun of, like, look at that house, it's got 20 cars outside, they all live in one house. But it's not, it's a traditional cultural way of life and a support system. And I'm going to compare it to Western. I remember my friend, I grew up white as white can be. So when I was 18, I moved out. Like, my parents didn't say anything. They're like, no, learn culture. You go do your thing, experience it. But about 4 or 5 years in, I realized, well, in one house, we have one mortgage, one cable bill, one hydro bill, and we survive. Like, well, now all of a sudden my brother's moved out, I've moved out, now we have 3 mortgages, 3 hydro bills, and so we're diluting the energy and power of my family. Now, at one hand, you have to say you can't experience or learn life unless you go on your own and experience it. So you have to go and learn it. But once you've learned life, I don't think there's nothing more powerful or stronger than the family dynamic. If a household stays together, eats together, they survive, they move forward. And I don't mean luxury. I mean, you don't even care about luxury. You don't care about what the Joneses are doing, because at your dinner table, there's 20 of you sitting and gathering and talking, and it's always a social environment. Whereas here, in the Western way of life, we want our privacy. We want our closed doors. I want to be able to go do what I want to go do and not have anybody know it. Now, imagine being a 25, 30-year-old who's lived on your own for 13 years and moving home again. Yeah, you don't get very much of the privacy, but I've learned to accept it. My dad got sick, and so about 4 or 5 years ago, I moved home. And within 2 months, I convinced my brother to come move home again. And I mean, my brother's very modern, been on his own forever, a big 5 acres, swimming pool, tennis court, the works. And I convinced him, I'm like, hey, son, home is where the heart is. You have to come home. And we all live at home again. And we're actually better off that way because we have more savings, the structure, but it's such a different belief system. You see division, I think, more amongst family than you do amongst strangers. You find strangers are closer sometimes than family is. But in the end, you still struggle. Like, I was sitting on my couch in a small village where my dad was. And I mean, India was a major influencer in my life because it showed me a world that I haven't seen here. Like, here, it seems fake. After you go travel in a place where there's 1 billion people and there's no running water or electricity, and you try to go down to the river to fill your pot for daily water, and it makes you realize what life and how lucky we are here. And we were sitting on the bed, and we were there for an intervention for one of my cousins. And he was a rebel and having trouble life and was struggling with substance abuse. And he was the only male in the family. So we needed to get him earning and taking care of his family and helping out because the father had passed away. And so we got on the bed, and my dad started talking. And my dad's quite a talker. He will never say anything. You could go 7 days and he doesn't say a word. But when he starts talking, you listen. And he just once said, "Kay, you know, you talk very highly about all your friends and all these different connections you have. Say you go and commit murder. Who's going to come and bail you out of jail?" He says, "Your mother or your father. Whether they like it, believe it or not, the only ones that are going to come and get you out are your mother and father." And I just looked at him and he goes, "Yeah," he goes, "I might not like you for doing it, I might not believe in what you did, but in the end, it'll be us, not your friends, that come and bail you out."
As we talk about the human family as well as our personal families, and the family of faith, the interfaith family. And what's come to my mind is that when I grew up in a family that never went to any faith church or any synagogue or chapel or anything, but I was just picked up on the Sunday school bus that went around the neighborhood. And in doing that, I was introduced to God and fell deeply in love with God as God was presented to me at the time. And I thought that was so wonderful. As I grew up, though, I learned that that church family thought if we didn't go to that church, we wouldn't get to heaven. And I'm thinking, oh, well, I didn't know any different, so okay, that's the way it is. But I'd had friends in high school as I grew older, as I got married, I met other people, went to other churches and thought that can't be right. My experience changed the truth that I had been given to a greater truth. And I started meeting people from other, at that time, Christian denominations. And I loved when we would all get together, when the streams would all run, and there's all these different ecumenical events. That's where I felt the closest to God. There was this running together of faith experiences. And then even after that, as we're all evolving, as the universe is expanding, as humans are growing, I just started to discover other people of other faiths and other religions, and started exploring a little bit and thinking, oh my, there's so much more even yet. And then came upon this group, this interfaith group here, and I'm learning more and more. I'm just a beginner at the interfaith, but I feel so much more of a rich person to expand my family to a greater human family and how we're all experiencing life. And so I'm really grateful for this group and all that we offer each other in truth, in beauty, in reality. And we're not having to give up what we've been given as children. It actually, we strengthen each other. And I've been reading some John Philip Newell lately on Celtic spirituality, and I love how he says about interfaith things, that we don't actually compete with each other. It's that we actually complete each other. And the thought of us completing each other by all bringing our pieces to the table, it really excites me. And so I'd like to hear how our lives are changed or enhanced by being a multi-faith community, an interfaith, or other way of being in the world, other ways of valuing what other people think, feel, experience.
You know, all faiths come from the same source. And I mean, I wasn't raised as a Baha'i, but I came to it fairly early in my life. And from my understanding of that teaching and being involved with various interfaith movements and associating with other faith groups, I feel like it's a protection for me, because the world is full of misinformation. It's full, as you've said, it's full of fear-mongering. There's many forces in society that try to control us through fear, and the fear is generated through misinformation. You know, I'm going to tell you that this group of people believes this or does that, or, you know, whatever lie or half-truth can be told in order to drive me to fear them and build a wall, right? So I feel like because I have this belief that every faith is from the same source, and this belief that it's my responsibility to learn about other faiths, when I hear somebody saying, oh, you know, Sikhs do this, or Muslims do that, or somebody sends me some idiotic email thread with making some racist or cultural or religious joke at somebody else's expense, I feel like I'm protected. I'm not susceptible to your fear-mongering because I know that it's not based in truth. And I can also use it to protect others. You know, like on my work site, I've occasionally had people, you know, make some comment about, oh, those people, they do that, or that people, they do that, and be able to say, yeah, actually, that's not true. This is the truth. So what you're saying and what you're, you know, the prejudice that you're carrying towards them isn't actually founded in fact. You might want to check that out.
It's not the people in this group that are being sent over to bomb other people, but people do that. And I'm sorry, but I can't see a day when it will be peaceful, at least not in the near future. I mean, I would hope for it, but I don't see it in the near future.
One of the big changes for me, I can equate to my father was head of the radio range station in Vancouver, which is you bring the airplanes across the ocean and turn them over to the tower. So I used to get to be able to watch what he did and watch what the tower did. And to me, the radio range station was when I'm constantly in my external world trying to figure it out, judge it, and then I turn it over to that internal voice inside. And when you watch on a radar screen, the guy who's in the tower is trying to get the plane to follow the dot, which I think we each have a dot inside us from the Creator. And we run into mentors here and there who throw out little things that help me see where my where my internal dot is. And I believe that, you know, one of the shifts for me was in the Christian religion, the idea of the Lord, thy God. To me, that's the dot in me. That's my connection with the holiness, the universe, the balance in the whole darn thing. So, and when the plane misses the dot coming in, it crashes. And I know, for me, when I lost both my sort of control of my external world and didn't know about my internal world, I crashed. I didn't have an understanding of the dot to follow.
How did you take off again?
Beg your pardon?
How did you take off again?
Well, I ran into one of those mentors. I got a call one night from a guy who said I'd actually stayed home from work because I felt so terrible about everything. I get this call who says, we're showing a video of Bill Beanz called Living Fully, and thought maybe you'd like to see it. And I said, no, I'm not going to go to it. And there's where I think a vision of change came in, because I was hoping for change. And then all of a sudden, about 15 minutes before it was to start, something in me took me there. And I think it was my dot. So I think, to me, it gets past all the religions, because I know every one of you has a dot. What I call the connection to the universe, or His holiness, or the Almighty, or whatever you want to call it. Call it God. So I think we can't get out of it. Yeah, at the level. Yeah. They're already connected. We just have to get this thing out of the way, which has all these funny little belief systems and cult things
All the noise.
Clive and I
Yeah.
have some.
It doesn't matter where you find your dots. It doesn't have to be one dot. Like Clive shared his dot that day, and the others shared hers, and we helped this girl who nobody knew who she was. Now Clive came the next day and asked about her. The other two gentlemen that joined our group also came in the very next day and asked about her. So until we ourselves reach out and open ourselves up for judgment, we're going to stay outsiders. But if at one point I tell you something vulnerable about myself, you look, okay, who's just like me, because we're all vulnerable. We all go through the same little, but we hide it. Like we try and be these strong beings that, oh, nothing affects me, I can get through this. And then we'll go hide somewhere and share our sorrow by ourselves and, okay, I'll be fine. And then back in public, we put on the masks again. So by her coming and breaking her, tearing that mask down and sharing with us, that connection that she made was amazing. So thank you, Clive, for being there that day. That was beautiful.
All I do is intentional relational development. That's what I've been doing for 12 plus years. I mean, my entire career is based on coffee, cigarettes, and talking, right? I mean, many people here are familiar with the work of the 5 and 2, right? And that's what we built it on. That's what we continue to build it on. I mean, right at this very moment, I've got 50 people sitting in a parking lot a block over doing just that, right? I mean, we've had an open door policy from the beginning with 5 and 2 as a, because we. Well, I'm not going to get into the crazy faith beginnings, but the thing is that our policies has been, to use that word, the vision statement of the 5 and 2 has always been the 3-point system, right? Love God, love others, do that everywhere. Like we don't get quabble over any other things. I mean, Ash has served with us. Cindy's been with us for 10 years at the Baha'i. Yeah, we got newspaper proof, you know. But we've always been an interfaith church in a city that historically doesn't do that. We're the only church in Abbotsford, to the best of my knowledge, as a Wiccan, as an accountant, right? Like, that's not the issue. We need to find that common goals, right? We can talk about our differences, which is great over coffee and chat, but the reality is, I think if you want to find a way to bring groups together, faith or no faith, or whatever the label it is, you have to find that common goal. And I think in North America particularly, we have a lot of common goals that we can reach. And you touched on some of those in the beginning, you know, economics, or be it housing, addiction issues. I mean, we can talk about how we can line up our faiths and work together, or we can go, here's a common goal that needs to be addressed together, and things will just organically and naturally work themselves out. At least I feel that way, and that's been my experience for well over a decade.
2001. This is just before 9/11 actually happened. And not what you would say a smart man in life. I've been lucky with timing and just the people I've been around. And so when I joined WestJet, they were selling shares at 25 cents a share for WestJet. And my first month in May, they were doing a buyout option. It was right before they went public, so we could buy $8,000 worth of shares. So that was 32,000 shares for $8,000. And so we all bought in right at that spot. When they opened in the market, the shares were $32 each. So you can imagine what your value. So I'm a 22-year-old kid with like just over $500,000 in my bank account. And it was like, so I treated all my friends. Like everywhere we went, it was on me. So the value of the shares went for, well, the boss says we need to sell more shares, so they split them. So all of a sudden my 8,000 shares turned to 16,000 at $15. Well, they went back to 32, and then we split them again. So I had 32,000 shares down to, yeah, we won't go into the number crunching, but it was insane. So one day I'm sitting in the gate area. It's about 10 o'clock at night. I'm the only one working for WestJet. And I'm like, what the heck am I doing here? I had a little computer in front of me, and I'm like, I'm waiting for a plane. Why am I waiting for a plane? It's like, because some business needs this thing to come land. It's like 120 people on that plane. They all paid $20 or $200 each minimum for their ticket. So it's about a $24,000 flight landing. And they're going to pay me $17 for that hour sitting here. And I realized, I got to get into business. I have to, like, I still know I had my shares sitting there and they really helped me out, but why couldn't I create something like that? And so then I figured, you know what? I quit 3 days later, and I went to the bank with my severance check and said, hey guys, will you hire me? And at this time, I have no degree, no diploma, no certificate, just keenness to learn in life. And the bank said, sorry, Jazz, we've got a freeze on hiring. We're closed. I told you this yesterday. And like, we're closing all the branches down to have the one. And I'm like, well, if you don't hire me, you're going to regret it because Royal Bank down the road will. And she's like, what? I'm like, well, I'll be hired at some point. You won't like that because my dad's pretty prominent in the community, so I get a lot of business. And so like, okay, come back an hour, talk to the manager. So I went home, cleaned up a little bit, came back, talked to the manager, and I got hired on the spot, and I started 3 days later. And they're like, well, what are you going to be in 5 years? And I said, running my own business. And they're like, well, you're not going to stay here at the bank with us? I'm like, no, I'm only here to learn about business with you guys. And he goes, you're serious? I'm like, well, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm like, I came here because I was there. This is what I thought. Here you are. So you're a stepping stool in life right now. And they're like, okay, well, you're hired. So I was a teller for 2 weeks, and I got robbed on my 10th day there. And the guy that robbed us actually opened an account there 3 days earlier. So I think he was scoping the place out or something. Like he came, checked it out, opened an account. So I went to the back, pulled his ID card. I said, this is the guy that just robbed me. And the manager's like, are you serious? I'm like, 100% serious. And they're like, yeah, he did look familiar. I'm like, yeah, I did his account 3 days ago or something like that. And so the manager's like, oh, good work. You gonna come in tomorrow? I'm like, well, I could use a little holiday. He's like, okay, come in tomorrow for Friday, and then we'll have a surprise for you when you get back. So Friday, this old lady, like I mean, frail lady, was in line, and it's lunchtime rush, and there's about 20 people in line in front of her. And I'm a 2-week wicket guy. I'm still in my training process, and I shut my wicket down. And you're not allowed to do this. You got to follow certain rules as a banker. You can't leave your area. You got to watch your money. Well, I didn't care. I saw a lady that needed help in line, so I closed my wicket. I walked around the counter, and I went straight to the lady. And I'm like, how can I help you, ma'am? There's no way you're going to be able to stand for half hour till we help you. And she's like, oh, well, I just got to do this stuff. So at that point, I went over to our customer service reps, and I said, ma'am, you don't look very busy. Can you come over and help this young lady? Older lady, but young lady. And she's like, oh. By this time, my manager had stood up and had a shocked look on her face, like, what's this kid doing over there, right? And so when I came back on Monday, I had an award certificate, which hadn't been issued in like 5 years at the bank. It was like a customer service award, something. And the big boss came and gave it to me, and we signed a 3-year personal banker officer contract.